Hello guys, welcome to my next video. We are going to learn template driven form in this video. We will learn how we can create template driven form and how we can submit the data which we have used in template driven form. So these are the two things we are going to cover in this video. First of all, to work on template driven form, we have to do a couple of things. If you see my screen, as always, I have uploaded my code on GitHub handler. You can just go there and download that code and run that setup on your local machine and code along with me. So if you see my screen, I have an HTML file where I have registered this form tag, and in this form tag I have added couple of things, like I have added username, I have added email, and I have also added a secret question. So I have added these three elements in the form, but this form will not work. As we know, in template driven form, everything related to form we are doing, it has to be in HTML in the template. Unlike reactive form, in template driven form, we do everything in the HTML in the template. To make this form work, to make this form as a selector in the Angular application, we have to import a form module in app.module.ts. This is a requirement of Angular. To register this form as a selector, we have to import this form module in app.module.ts. So let's go to app.module.ts. We have already imported form module, and we have also imported form module here too. So this is the requirement. If that form module is not imported in the application, then this form will not be considered as selector in the HTML. And there's one important thing to just to let you know, that when we create this project from Angular CLI, this form module will automatically be imported in the application. We do not have to import that explicitly, but it is important to have idea that this form module is important to be imported in app.module.ts. So now if we see this HTML, we have bunch of fields, and we have that everything is wrapped in form module, but these fields will not be considered as JavaScript object. These fields will not be considered as control. When I talk about control, I am referring to JavaScript object we are using, because when we have a form in the HTML, that form in term of JavaScript, that form will be converted as a JavaScript object in Angular. And right now it will not be considered as JavaScript object. It will be just an empty object. These fields will not be registered. Reason is, we have to register each field individually in the form selector. How we will register that? We have to make a couple of changes in our code. If you see my screen, I'm just going to make a different format of that input field just to have a clear understanding. We have to add ng model in each field, in each element tag which we want to register in JavaScript object. We have to add ng model in this HTML tag. So once we add this ng model, this means that this input field will be registered as a control in JavaScript object, which is created by the form. And now we can work on that JavaScript object. So we'll do same thing on other input field also, which is email one. I'm just going to format it little bit nicer to have better understanding. I have added ng model here too. Now same thing I'm gonna do for select. So we have added three ng model. We have to add these ng model explicitly to register these fields in JavaScript object. Reason why we have to include these ng model explicitly is that there could be a scenario in which we do not want to register all our input fields. There could be some drop downs or something, which the purpose of those drop downs could be just to display the value based on certain selection of any other drop down. So just to display the value, it means we are not going to submit those values, or we're not going to post those values as HTTP request. Purpose of those drop downs could be just to display the information. So we do not want to register those drop downs as a control in our in our JavaScript object, because we are not going to post those values as a HTTP request. So that's why we have to add ng model in each field, which field we want to register in our form control in our JavaScript object. So we have added ng model. Now we have to do one more thing. We have to name these fields, actually, like we do in normal HTML forms. We have to set name of these input fields. Like for username, I am setting username, and for email address, I'm going to do same thing. I'm going to add email address. This is a simple Java HTML form which we do on other programming languages like PHP and stuff too. And for the select box also, I am going to add name of that select box as secret, because this select box is for secret question. Now when we get to HTML, our form is looking like this. It was already looking like this, but we have added two things on our form. One, we have in each input field or in HTML element, we have added ng model. And second thing we have done is we have added name of those input fields. So we have done two things. Now adding these two values, this form will be registered as form control, and this will be converted or treated as JavaScript object in TypeScript file, so that we can work on those input fields. Remember, we cannot submit like we do in normal forms. We cannot submit whole data of this form to any other page, because Angular is a single page application. We have to reach out to the server through HTTP request. So these forms have been registered now. Now the other thing is we have to submit this form in a way so that we can get the values of those input fields. So to submit these forms, normally we have a method. We already have added submit button here. So the default behavior of the submit button is to submit the data which is listed on the form, which is wrapped in the form, to any other page where we want to submit. This is the default behavior of that. To submit that, we are not going to include some explicit listener or click listener, something like that. This submit functionality will automatically submit the form, and it will automatically create an event which will be considered as on submit. So on that on submit event, we can define a function where we want to receive those values. So if you see the form tag, I'll add that ng submit. This is a default function, JavaScript function, which will be called when we click on submit button. This is a default behavior of a form. So when we click on that, I'm going to write a function. That function will be called when we submit our form. So we have added that function. Now we are going to initialize that function in our app component on submit. So in this on submit, we will receive the control what have been passed, or when we click on submit button, this function will be triggered, because we have linked this function to a default behavior of this form tag, which is ng submit. So when submit button will click, this on submit function will be called. Now we have to receive the parameters. We have to receive the values which are registered in input fields. To do that, we have to do some we have to initialize some local variables. These are called local reference variables. Like in this form tag, I'm going to add #f. This is a local reference variable of a form I have created here. Now I'm going to pass this local reference variable here in this function, and here I'm going to receive that. I'll write form, and here the type of it will be HTML. Now in the TypeScript file, we will receive that local reference variable what we have passed from HTML file. So we'll get that local variable here. Form, and its type will be HTML form element. So we will get the data, its type will be HTML form element. Now we will see when we submit that form how that data will look like. Form, and now when I load that and when we click on submit, I have already opened this console log, so we will see the output here in console log. When I click on submit, we will see that form. We will see that form has been posted to TypeScript file, but we do not want to get form in TypeScript file. We want to get the JavaScript object orient representation of that form. Right now we are getting HTML. There's a way we have to know that how we can get the JavaScript representation of that HTML form instead of getting the HTML. There is also a way how to get that. In this HTML file where we have added this local reference variable f, we have to initialize that as ng form. So now this local reference variable will considered as ng form, and when it will be posted as a parameter in this function, it will post the JavaScript object which will be created from this HTML to the TypeScript file. Now when we go to TypeScript file, instead of getting this HTML form element, we will get ng form. So it is important that when the type of this receiving parameter will be ng form, we have to import that also in TypeScript file. This is automatically imported here too. So now when we see the HTML of, when we see the output of that parameter, what we are getting from the HTML, it will look like something which will be a JavaScript object which will represent the form which we have passed from HTML. So here now when you see I'm writing some text here. When I click on submit, and when we see in the HTML, when we see in the output, you see it is, instead of passing HTML, it has passed JavaScript object. Now we have seen the different thing. This is a JavaScript object which represents the form, and on this object we can work, we can do lot of different things. It will give us all the information which is related to form. Like here, if you see the different attributes, control, dirty, disable, each attribute has different functionality linked to it. Each attributes has different value. We can work on that. And if we want to get the values which we have posted from this form, we can get those values too. Here in the value thing, we have object. You see we have posted username, email and stuff like that. So all these values can be retrieved in the form in this value index of JavaScript object. So guys, this is how we can create form template driven, and we can submit that template driven form, and we can get the JavaScript object representation of that form. So in our next video, we will keep working on this form. We will keep adding lot of features. We will keep adding other functionalities, like we will know how we can validate that form, how we can enhance the functionality of this form. So guys, stay tuned. In my next video, we will work on validation of that form. I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you.